Hello, good evening, and welcome to Spotlight. A gruesome and heartbreaking incident occurred over the Easter holidays, which has left parents baffled and uneasy and caused fear among residents of Kasoa and other Ghanaians. 2 teenagers were arrested for the murder of a 10-year-old boy. This murder was carried out for ritual purposes. Now, the teenage boys, who are 15 and 17 years respectively, are said to have lured the victim into an uncompleted building and clubbed him to death. The questions surrounding this chilling incident are many, and today on Spotlight, we'll be adding our perspective to the discussion, specifically exploring how we can all contribute to mitigating crime among the youth. To help us do this, we have Nelson Owusu, who is the acting CEO of the National Youth Authority. We have Adib Sani, he's a security analyst, and George Ekem Ferguson, a clinical psychologist. We also have a sociologist, Dr. Christopher Ampedu, and I am Nuong Falong. Spotlight to go for a quick break, and when we come back, we'll move into the discussion. Stay with us.
Unique, contemporary, engaging. Introducing the ultimate talk show that captures, scrutinizes, and stirs up conversations around relevant content across the globe. We talk to the movers and shakers in the tech, youth entrepreneurship, creative arts industry, and many more. Join me, Kwame A. Opoku, usher you to the realm beyond the headlines, new tech releases, trends, and clicks. It's going to be a fun ride on MS Conversations.
Yes, guys, it's your girl, Miss Drew, your hostess with the mostest. I'll see you in the next moment.
Angelina, you be cool in my temperature. If you call,
say cheese, take a picture. Shaka post, make a see, take a picture.
in the leg book, boah.
Why the party there today? Hey mama, hey I ever say. Shake your body.
Wagwan, my people, welcome to X-Cave.
A boy's body count and a girl's body count matter differently.
Wow, ladies.
Probably an experience, something that happened.
Is it a deal breaker in a relationship?
No.
The X-Cave, and this show focuses on topics that are hot on the lips of our young people and presents it in an open, honest conversation.
Oh, look at him, he's crying, he's such a girl.
In other words, there are no liars on our show.
The man is the head of the home. The man is, quote unquote, the breadwinner.
We come here with the truth.
We talk of something being toxic. It's something which is harmful or unpleasant.
Stay glued to the television for the hottest show on TV.
Welcome back to Spotlight. Thank you for staying with us. If you're joining us on social media, remember to get interactive. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your perspective. Leave that on our profiles at Facebook at MX24GH, on Twitter, on YouTube, same handle on all social media platforms. Now, before we went on that break, I did mention that we're delving into the gruesome murder of a young boy which occurred in Kaswa over the holidays, the Easter holidays. We're trying to understand exactly what this means for our society, as many serious questions have arisen, and how it affects us all. Also, how can we all contribute to mitigating crime? As we have come to know in the last few months, the world has become such a global village, and whatever affects a small group of people or a small town basically affects all of us, and it's a cause for concern among everyone. Joining me for this discussion, we are honored to have Mr. Nelson Owusu, who is the acting CEO of the National Youth Authority. We have Adib Sani, a security analyst, not new to Spotlight in any way. Mr. George Ekem Ferguson, a clinical psychologist, joining via Zoom, and a sociologist, Dr. Christopher Ampadu, also joining via Zoom. Gentlemen, hello, welcome to Spotlight. Thank you so much for lending us your time.
Thank you.
Right, Mr. Ampadu, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Fantastic. Now, Mr. Ferguson, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Great, great, great. Now, let me start with Dr. Ampadu. Have you been following the story since it broke? And just give us your personal impression of the entire incident.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity to be part of these discussions. Indeed, I've been following, this issue when we started. I was so troubled to hear such a sad news coming from very young people, 16, 17 years. And it really also informs me about the kind of society we find ourselves in currently. Sometimes sociological issues are not issues that even the media really spend time on, but the type of environment we create for ourselves, the kind of society we build for ourselves, the type of family systems that we have, the type of nurturing that we give to our children, and even the type of churches and religious organizations that we have, they all contribute towards this kind of behavior from the youth. And so it is awful and sometimes disappointing that we should have such an issue happening in our time. But at the same time, I think it informs us of the fact that the society we are creating for ourselves is degenerating to something else. And it is a wake-up call, both not only to our government, but to our family systems, to all of us to rise up, to build the kind of society we want. Because we can't talk about society without people, and we can't talk about people without the family system, and we can't talk about the family system without marriage. And marriage is now being seriously attacked all over. So these are consequences of how we have somehow allowed ourselves to generate. So for me, it is a call on us to rise up before things get worse.
Thank you, Dr. Ampadu. We have also just been joined by Adib Sani, who is a security analyst on phone. I'm going to get to him shortly, but listening to Dr. Christopher Ampadu, a sociologist, he mainly thinks that this is the fallout of a society that is degenerating, and he thinks it's a wake-up call to all of us to rise up before things get completely out of hands. I'm going to interrogate that further. But before that, thank you, Adib Sani, for joining us. Now, Mr. George Ekem Ferguson is also still with us. Mr. Ferguson, can you hear me, sir? Mr. Ferguson, if you can hear me, kindly unmute yourself. I'm just trying to get your general opinion about the incident.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Ferguson, what's your general impression of what has happened?
All right. Thank you very much for the opportunity to join you this afternoon. I think from all that has happened over the week, it's not something that anybody will be happy about. It's rather unfortunate, especially happening among the youth or within the youth of our society. And these issues, generally, there are issues concerning child delinquency all over the place. But to the magnitude that we are experiencing now, it's quite troubling. And all alludes to the fact that our society is changing. And as the society is changing, we as well also need to adapt in order to be able to deal with all these social issues that is associated with globalization. And most of the theories that help us to understand these phenomena, some actually point to the fact that as the society changes, it comes along with these things, okay? And so as we develop, our society improves or develops in sense growth, we need to also be aware of some of these challenges that are associated with it and adopt the necessary precautions or the necessary measures in order to deal with it. It's important that we begin to look at it critically at this point in time that it has started, rather than to wait for it to degenerate. We need to tackle it head on and then ensure that the right measures are taken to actually nip it in the bud and prevent others from also following in future.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ekem Ferguson. You are on the same tangent as Dr. Christopher Ampedu, inferring more from the progress or degeneration of society and how we need to collectively tackle the issues before they get to an irreparable point. Now, let me go to Mr. Sani, who is a security analyst. Let's hear the security perspective before I go into the actual questions that I have. But before Mr. Sani, let me just give you a quick overview of some data that we have. And we know as of February 2021, Ghana had a crime index of 48.52. That's the crime index that Ghana recorded as of February this year. The index measures the level of crime in any given country or city. So Ghana collectively had a level of crime of 48.52. So this means that at that date, in February, at that time, crime in Ghana was considered to be on a moderate level because this was 48.52. As to the strict accuracy of that, I cannot tell. But we also know that Ghana has a young age structure. Approximately 57% of Ghanaians are considered youthful. They are under the age of 25. 57% of the Ghanaian population is under the age of 25. Interesting statistics. Now, Mr. Sani.
I'm on.
Thank you so much for joining us. As a security analyst, what is your inference from the situation that we're dealing with?
Well, let me make some little inference to the statistics you have just mentioned.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, the youth population is consistent with that of the whole Africa, because the last time I checked, the Africa Economic Outlook points to the fact that by year 2045, the youth population would more than double. And Nigeria remains, I think, the largest country with the largest number of youth. At the same time, it remains the country with the largest number of people living below the poverty line after India. In Ghana, when you take a closer look at the crime statistics, especially from 2017 to 2019, crime has been on the increase, and this is according to statistics published by the Ghana Police Service, not by me. Also, according to the U.S. Department of State India Travel Advisory Warning to Ghana, published in 2019. And the latest one published in 2020, I think in September, even according to the World Bank, etc. But just recently, the Bureau of Public Safety pointed to the fact that crime seems to have diminished a bit, just a bit, marginally, in 2020. So basically, I mean, we have a lot of work to do going forward, even though a lot has been done so far, but still, we need to address the elephant in the room, the fundamentals. However, our focus has all been the provision of pickup trucks, the provision of buses, the provision of helicopters, while still ignoring the fundamental issues of security in the country. Hence, the nature of insecurity that we seem to be recording on a daily basis.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sani, which makes this more of an Africa-wide problem than just zoning in on Ghana. Thank you for that insight. Let me go to Dr. Christopher Ampadu, who we started with. Dr. Chris, you were mentioning that this could be more of a fallout of a society that is degenerating. But can this really be attributed to societal failure? Or do we have other factors, like the family unit, that can feed into what has caused this situation?
Thank you so much. I think this problem needs to be seen from a very holistic perspective. One, it starts with marriage. Now we see the prominence that is given to the marriage system. Marriage now is not being respected. Divorce rate has increased. Single parenthood has now become the order of the day. And for that matter, care for children, within the family context has come so low. Now, that is a very disturbing that we are going through. Because for every stable society, we need a very strong family system, which is based on the marriage system also that we have. But right now, these two foundation system, marriage and family, is down completely, whereby marriage among young people is not too much respected, and the dignity in marriage is now not accorded. Now, that is a big problem that I think religious organizations or the churches should take up and work on seriously, because even the rate of divorce within a church weddings is over 60%. So sometimes the church cannot give us the hope we need.
Dr. Ampadu, did you say over 60% divorce rate?
It's now around 60. And that is serious. You know, if even within the church, that is the amount of, the rate at which divorce is happening, then what the outside world? And so these are worrying issues that we can talk about.
Doctor, forgive me while I interject there, because I feel compelled to ask if divorce necessarily results in, child delinquency, as you are speaking about.
Of course, we do know that single parenthood, though many parents are doing their best, we cannot get the best out of parenthood if it is a single parenting. So the best type of parenthood we can get is when the mom and dad are together taking care of the child. Now, people are saying that society is changing. I think society should change for the better. But if society is changing for the worse, then I think we should all be worried. Because we do know that society is dynamic. And that dynamism should not be to the worst, but for the better. And so that's why I think we need to take a critical look about our system, our social systems that we have, because the best part of socialization that someone can get is first within the family, before we can talk about even the peer groups or schools. Now we know the social media has become the forefront for socialization. That is upbringing, nurturing, and then children taking inspiration more from the social media than from their parents or from even their elder family systems. Now, when that happens, then you say that, okay, the world is a global village. Yes, but Ghana, we have our values, and we have our norms and traditions. So where people are ignoring the values and norms and now allowing the other society, other things going out in other world systems, taking charge of socializing our children, and for that matter, most of us, then it means that even the values we have, the sort of respect for human beings, humankind, for the elderly, the type of norms and traditions that have made Ghana a very unique place that people give respect to us will be gone, because we'll be sacrificing that for global village. And that's why I'm saying that, you see, all of us have work to do. And this call for national awakening for us to stand out again to see what we can do. The church, what can the church do? What can the traditional societies, rulers do? What can parents do? If not, now it is two children against a stranger. Now it may happen even in our homes. Children against their parents. And then we will not be able to contain it. So it is a holistic problem that we have to look at. And then as social commentators and as the media, social media, and the media in particular, instead of always just talking about politics, MPP, NDC, let these issues be so critical for us to dialogue on, to talk on, bring on the church. Because the biggest role, if you talk of the church in Ghana, over 70% of the population claims to be Christian. And if even in a Christian community, we see this sort of evil, high corruption rate, and nepotism and tribalism, all the evil can also be found in the church, then we know we are in big trouble that we need to address them realistically. We don't have to pretend.
Dr. Pedu, you mentioned, heavy social media content that children are exposed to, but shouldn't those at home, parents and other people around the child, be the ones regulating the content that children are allowed to see? Because it's possible to set controls for television and internet. This is possible.
It's possible, my sister. but that can happen when you have strong family ties and marriage systems. Now, what we have is a loose one when parents cannot stay together. So the family system somehow is breaking down. Few family systems are together and taking that responsibility of nurturing their children in a way that will bring, progress and development. There are some parents who don't care. Some have become so irresponsible. Some even do not want, now, even among the youth, some see marriage now as a contract. You marry for some number of years, and then you abrogate it, and then re-enter. The idea about even marriage now is so weird that we have to consciously now come back to the reality that we find ourselves, rather than just think that we are in a global village.
Thank you, Dr. Ampadu. Dr. Ampadu is a sociologist. He's pretty heavy on the importance of the family unit and marriages remaining intact, according to him. We're going to come back to further questions on that, but we've also been joined by acting CEO of the National Youth Authority, that's Mr. Nelson Owusu. He wasn't present at the beginning of the program. Welcome, Mr. Owusu. Mr. Owusu, if you can hear me, please unmute yourself. Hello, Mr. Owusu. Are you on the line? I think there are a few challenges with Mr. Owusu's line, but of course we'll keep trying to re-establish connection with him. In the meantime, let me go to Mr. Ekem Ferguson, who I wanted to put these questions to. Mr. Ferguson, we've heard Dr. Ampadu hammer a lot on the family unit, but is it possible that we are missing a mental health angle to this situation?
Yes. Apart from the family system, we need to also look at the individual factors, okay, that relates to the individual in person. And then here we are talking about the how the individual has developed, or the development pattern of the individual, which if the development pattern is not smooth, does not follow the order that is supposed to, can also create some psychological or mental health issues. Now we are looking at the personality of an individual being a contributory factor. Okay, so in this case, for example, we don't really know their mental health or their mental state. And this can only be known when we've been able to do an assessment of them.
So shouldn't there be an assessment of that while the case is being investigated? Shouldn't their mental health be assessed as part of the solution?
Yes, certainly it's something that needs to be considered, because we need to understand what is actually happening within them, okay, as an individual. So the personality trait is something that is worth looking at. Okay, so here you are looking at conduct disorder, you are looking at antisocial behavior, okay, that could be a contributory factor to it. We also can't tell whether they are even using substances, because globally we know that substance abuse among the youth is quite high, okay, especially around the junior high school, the senior high school. We have this problem. Are they using some substances? And these substances would actually also affect their mental health and then how they behave, okay? We are also looking at their cognitive development. How have they developed cognitively? Okay, how is their thinking pattern? Do they have realistic thoughts? Okay, how are they reasoning through situations? Because fine, maybe they are coming from a background that is poor or socioeconomically
challenging.
But then, how do they reason? How do they reason to that? And in their quest to actually move out of that situation, what are the practical steps that they are going to take? You get it? Some of the theories allude to the fact that sometimes in our quest to even move out of certain situations that we don't like, we tend to use illegitimate means in order to do that. And this all forms part of our psyche and how we think about the situation, at hand. So there's definitely a need to assess the mental status and the mental health of these individuals to really ascertain what is actually happening with them and what actually compelled them to take some of these decisions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ferguson. This is a very good point, very important point, in fact. The need to assess the mental health of these youngsters who have involved themselves in such a gruesome act. This is an angle that may help us understand what is going on with them mentally, how they have reacted to their environment, and exactly their thought pattern, so we can understand from their perspective. Because without all that insight, a solution will be very, very difficult. We've been joined again by the acting CEO of the National Youth Authority, Mr. Nelson Owusu. We're trying to establish contact with him earlier, and we had challenges with the line. Hopefully the line is clearer this time. Hello, Mr. Owusu. Thank you so much for joining us on Spotlight.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. The line went dead on us initially. Now, before you joined us, I took the perspectives of the other gentlemen on the line. Now, have you been following this situation, and what is your general impression of what we are dealing with?
I have been with you, since you started the discussions.
Oh, I see.
I don't know if you, but I've been around. I've been listening to the discussion.
Oh, my apologies. The line kept failing us.
Okay. All right. So the question is, have I been following what is happening?
Yes. The murder of this child by two children, in fact.
Okay, we have been following. This is a very unfortunate, bizarre story, and I'm sure the entire country is saddened by the event we are experiencing in recent times, particularly among the young people. And so as the National Youth Authority responsible for youth development, youth issues in this country, we have been following events, particularly the one that just happened on the last Saturday. And then we have even come out with a statement on it. Yes, this issue is, as I've said, very sad, very, very bizarre. We know about murders. We know about crimes, high-level crimes. What we don't know about is crimes of that stature being committed by young people of the age bracket we are talking about. That is what seems to be very worrying. And it is kind of pointing to the fact that there is a certain deterioration within the very fabric of the society that is causing this kind of high-level involvement in crime by young people. And so somebody asked the question, what is the concept of richness and of money-making, even among people who are 15-year-old, 17-year-old, 18-year-old? How rich do they want to become? What is the understanding of being rich to the extent that we are ready to kill regardless to be able to make money? And these are real issues we need to talk about. But let me move the discussion further and talk about the issue of the society versus the youth. We have constantly been talking about youth. We have been talking about youth, their development. We are talking about how we can get them jobs and so on. Yes. But the most unfortunate part has to do with the way society also mirrors the youth. Society sees the youth as the deviant one. It sees the youth as the one that is recalcitrant. The youth is the one that is not ready to conform to the laws and so on and so forth. So that brand...
You're saying security has... society has antagonized the youth, basically.
Yes, basically what we've done is that we have cast the youth in that bad light to the extent that we are not ready to listen to the very vulnerabilities that the youth themselves are exposed to. And that is the real issue. And when I listen to the panel discussion, it points to one fact. But the youth also have their own challenges. And nobody is listening to those challenges. Somebody talked about globalization. So we are not diagnosing it well. How is globalization impacting on the modern day youth? And how are they consuming that? How is that impacting on them and consequently on the on the society as a whole? This discussion, until we open it up and get all of us talking about it, it will constantly be the issue of young people are not conforming, young people are deviant, young people are not ready to listen to the elderly, they are not ready to go the way of society and so on, without really tackling the real issue of the enormous exposure they are experiencing on a daily basis. And look, it is not only the televisions and the radio stations. We are talking about even within their community. Only God knows how they mirror richness in their community, in their society, in their families, within their school environment. What is happening there? Who is listening to them? If we listen to them, how are we reacting or responding to their needs and their concerns? Many young people who are moving from the stage of childhood through the adolescent stage to the youth stage, what have you, they have nobody to talk to. Even in their own homes, their parents are branding them as the troublesome ones. And so even if they have real challenges, they see them because they are the troublesome. We will listen to you. And these are the real issues. They have left them to their own fate and they are fending for themselves. They go onto the street and whatever they pick from the street becomes part of their life and livelihood. And that is what they hinge on and
Mr.
begin
Nelson,
to move with.
Where is this missing link coming from? Because there seems to be a divide between society and the youth. So you're saying it's become society versus the youth. And many people keep blaming the youth for all sorts of delinquent behavior without trying to understand the youth properly. But where is the break in understanding coming from? Because all those who are part of society now have been youthful before now. So why is it so difficult to understand the perspective of the youth?
Yes, I will respond to this in two ways. One, it has to do with our cultural orientation. You know, typically within our cultural milieu, we see the youth as not responsible, doesn't have a mind, is not ready to think. And so when the elders meet, they ask the youth to go out there. You go and play. When we finish our meeting, then you come in. So in terms of really involvement in decision making, it is cultural. Youth have been left out. So it is the interventionist approach that we are adopting. This is what the youth needs. This is what their want is. So let us give them. And we think that if we give it to them, they will be fine. That is purely interventionist. We are not really doing what we call substantive inclusive in terms of decision making that affect the youth. So at the National Youth Authority, what we say is that nothing for the youth without the youth. If you are taking a decision for the youth and that is going to go a long way to impact on the youth, then you must also take steps pragmatically to make sure that the young people themselves are part of the processes that are leading to their own welfare, and not that sitting somewhere and thinking that this is the policy direction and this is the way we think we should go. That is part of it. The second issue has to do with the way our orientation is. Our orientation generally is the fact that, well, when you move from childhood to the youth stage, you are gone already. You are gone already, so we should leave you alone. Go and fend for yourself. Your fellows are out there fending for themselves. Why are you here? Why are you worrying me? So that transition from childhood to adulthood, there's a big gap in there, which we have not been able to diagnose well and sit around the table, discuss the issues thoroughly. We can talk about the psychological issues. We can talk about the sociological issues. But the pragmatic issues, the real issues on the ground, the de facto issues are not being tackled head on. And the de facto issues is that there's so much neglect at the policy level, at the implementation stage, and even at the community and the society, the family level. There's so much neglect. So we can talk about children, and so we have a lot of people empathizing with children. And so when a child finds himself in situations like this, then there is society's empathy. But when you have a young person who is also going through some kind of change, gets himself involved in situations like this, it is pure condemnation, sentencing. So the approach we have used over the years is the stick approach. Make the laws and make sure that the law deals with them drastically. Whoever finds himself on the wrong side of the law, let the law work. That is what we have been doing so far. We have not really been able to sit down properly and begin to do the proper diagnosis and understand the vulnerability issues. Because my sister, you and I would agree that when we were growing up, we didn't have the issues of television. I remember when I got the opportunity to watch television. I'm not too old, but it's quite recent that televisions are all over the place. I remember very well that nobody talked about decoder. Decoder for where? You won't get a decoder to watch. It was really for the affluent to be able to afford DSTV. Today, DSTV is common. Now we have multi-TV and the rest all coming on board. There was no way you were going to have access to computer. So now our mobile phone is exposing the young people to the global community. And so the good and the bad within the global community are having impact on these young people. And nobody's really looking at these issues. So we can talk about the focus has always been about the economic issues. How do we get the economy running? How do we get the youth work to do? These are economic issues. We are not moving the people along. And if we talk about holistic development, that the holistic development should be inclusive enough and taking care of their basic needs, such as the one we are talking about here. And so, yes, the issues are unfortunate. We wish that we did not have young people getting themselves into situations like this. But it has happened. And it has happened because society cannot completely absorb itself from some of these things that are happening all over the place. We need to begin to understand that whatever is happening right now is mirroring how society is gradually turning into. And we need to get right across the table with all the stakeholders involved and making sure that we do proper diagnostics and understanding of the issues, and then coming up with pragmatic ways that we can intervene and helping the young people. The sad story about this whole bizarre incident is the fact that even those two people that we are persecuting right now are themselves also have their lives jeopardized. And so they are not going to, I'm telling you, their families are even going to be affected. Society is going to see their families in a different light. So how much more those people were directly involved in that? So we are talking about three very important lives that as a country we are going to lose in terms of their impact that they were going to create. So it's a very sad situation, but it is not all doom and gloom. I can tell you that if we begin to have the discussions as we are doing, then we are going to have the situations properly, so to speak, understood and the way forward. Unfortunately, most of the platforms, the whole year, I have been monitoring the platform. Hardly do you hear a television station, a radio station, a media platform dedicating the period to talk about issues affecting young people. It doesn't happen until you get situations like this, and then 1 week the discussions will come and nobody talks about it, and the rest are all economic issues and governance issues. Without the very people that it's going to affect.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nelson Owusu. This is quite a mouthful and a lot to think about. Now, it seems the world is opening up at a very fast rate, and our interventions where the youth are concerned need to be more proactive and more introspective. There's one thing, though, that I disagree with, mentioning that TV stations are not dedicated to the issues of the youth. MX24 is very dedicated to the issues that confront the youth, and every day we are churning out good content, healthy, engaging.
MX24, then I would encourage you to do more.
Yes,
To encourage you to do more so that we reach out to many young people. You know, you are fond of the entertainment part,
Yes.
but these are real discussions we need to rope the young people in. So I hope that the next platform you create, let's begin to listen to the young people, not those who can only speak English on your platform. There are many young people out there who may not be able to speak the English on your platform. They are going through a lot. How do we devise strategies, create platforms, so that we listen to them too? So inclusive that is leaving people behind.
So looking beyond the formal youth to also those, you know, in other groupings, especially those who do not speak English, like you're saying,
they
that's a very important,
we need them on board.
very important part of the youth to ensure inclusiveness. It's impossible to develop without being inclusive. But let me go to Mr. Adib Sani, who is a security analyst and is still with us. Now, Mr. Sani, do you agree with this assertion that we are neglecting the youth?
Well, unfortunately, I wasn't hearing a thing from the onset from my other panelists. But I think, by and large, based on certain indicators, we seem to be ignoring the youth. When you take a closer look at the recent State of the Nation address by the President and, of course, the budget statement put before Parliament, you'd realize that there's no concrete, deliberate, proactive intervention that is primarily aimed at empowering the youth by making them economically viable, financially independent. I know all of these is fused into different documents we have, but to have a specific targeted sort of intervention aimed at the youth is what is lacking.
Mr. Sani,
there's a direct correlation. Okay, I'm listening.
Let's look at unemployment, which many people have discussed in connection with this incident. Now, how do we even tackle the issue? How do we mention unemployment as a contributory factor to this incident when the people involved are not even people qualified for the labor market?
Well, the thing is, the person doesn't necessarily have to be qualified for the labor market as in the formal sector. There are so many other things people can do, whether you are educated or you are not educated. But the thing is, there's a direct correlation between unemployment and security, because the thing is, usually because of lack of opportunity, you have a lot of the youth moving from the hinterlands towards the urban areas in search of greener pastures, they say. So when they get to urban areas such as Accra, Kumasi, Kasua, Ashama, and their expectations are not well met, then they become frustrated, they become disenchanted, and some of them, in the end, become belligerent. That is why you have a lot of them joining vigilante groups. They become land guards, and some even become robbers, because some people go into crime as a means of survival. You cannot run away from that fact. Whilst others go into it as a means of luxury. So if we are able to empower the youth into whether by giving them jobs in the formal sector or by empowering them so they are able to start businesses and become financially independent, or let's say financially secure, that is left to the policy makers to put such interventions in motion. However, we seem not to be paying much attention to it. What we usually do is we constrict it all to the everyday arrest and prosecute criminals, while unconsciously failing to deal with the fundamental issues. Why would someone go on a robbery spree? We think the person just feels like doing so. What are the deep-rooted socio-economic and geopolitical deficits in our society that would push the youth to think that the only way you can make money is to sacrifice a human being? So if we are able to deal with it from the fundamentals, I'm pretty sure that we would be succeeding in dealing with it in a more sustainable manner. The unfortunate thing is we always, deal with it superficially, and the next minute you have it happen again. And I'm hoping and praying that it doesn't end here. We don't just talk about it, and in a week or so time it becomes dead news, it becomes dormant, then we forget about it, move on to another issue until the next person dies. Who knows? Could be my son, could be your daughter. So this, as gory, as despicable, as dastardly as it is, should be an opportunity for us to get introspective, put in place the right structures, so at least we wouldn't have this happen again.
Thank you, Mr. Sani. Shall I take this as your closing remarks, or would you like to put in some closing remarks?
Well, you see, the thing is, I have personally taken the trouble to do a SWOT, in the midst of all the chaos, the drama, the analysis. And I've come to the realization that teenagers, so-called sacrificing a human, is a complex issue than we fathom, which would require a multi-dimensional, multifaceted, multidisciplinary approach to be dealt with, because it's quite complex than we think it is. So I think we should first and foremost get the regulators, NCA, MMC, to bite. If they don't bite, a lot more TV stations will feel it's a free-for-all. They parade children under 5, under 6, and accuse them of being witches and wizards, and nobody sees nothing wrong with it. We need to act. Secondly, we need to address some of these issues from the socio-economic and geopolitical perspective, and that is what is hinged into what we call human security, as crafted by the UNDP in 1994, which is very synonymous with the Sustainable Development Goals. By improving the human capacity, you invariably improve national security, and that should be where our attention should be.
Thank you, Mr. Sani, for that input there. Improving human capacity goes a long way to solve many, many issues. And this particular incident about media content is so important, because I even remember myself watching a random television station, and I actually took records of this, took an entire video, and there was an advert of someone who was purporting to be able to double money, and even put out a number which people could call or send their monies to, and then the money would be doubled. And these are quite interesting content when you watch television and see these kind of things and know very well that this is aired during the day. There are children, there are gullible people watching who will test these propositions that are being made, to the extent that we know some children call these numbers and are given directions by whichever person is behind these numbers, and they follow the directions. So this is a pretty alarming situation that we're dealing with. Now, I'll just go to the sociologist who is with us, Dr. Ampadu. Do you think we should be tackling media content, not just tackling it, but censoring what is being streamed on television that children and adults alike are consuming? Dr. Ampadu, if you can hear me, please unmute.
I didn't hear the question.
Yes. Should we be censoring media content, especially now that we have established there's so much unwholesome content on our screens, on our airwaves, that are being consumed by gullible people within society?
Well, I will not call for censoring content, but we should be mindful. What is the media out there for? To educate, to inform, and also to bring development. If truly we care for the mandate for which the various stations were established, then we should also be mindful of the fact that we operate within society that has values, and these values should be cherished. These values should count as far as our media contents are concerned. It's for censoring. Now, when that happens, it means that we are not even growing in our development, for that matter, our democracy. And then it is the same you media people who rise up and say that we don't have freedom of speech, and the various agitations will again come to pass. So I think we are all building a nation. You can't build a nation without the people. And the values of the people are so important, such that in everything you do, we are to be mindful of helping build our society. We don't have any other than ours. And so for people, for some, it is all about money. Once they will get money, once they will get profits, then they don't care the context. And when it happens, then that is selfish and egoistic. But if we are truly developmentally minded, then this is the time for us to think through, because we are building a society. It can be your child, it can be mine, it can be a cousin, a nephew. You cannot say that you don't care. And if you all do care, then what can you also do in bringing what we're doing into play to move Ghana forward as a nation, so that the respect and dignity we've had over the years can be maintained. So these are my thoughts. Censoring is not too good because it raises a whole lot of issues for the government and for that matter for the media.
Thank you, Mr. Ampadu. Actually, what I meant by censoring was not censoring journalists, but censor what is being shown on TV stations. I gave an example of sometimes putting on the television and hearing people advertising interesting ways of making money, you know, and encouraging people to call, which I have witnessed myself on television. Now, Mr. Ampadu, let's take your closing remarks on the issue, so I can just rope in Mr. Ferguson before we close.
So who are the producers? Do they have moral and ethical values? If they have, why should you wait for someone to come in and say, my friend, take this off? And you just have to bring in one that will help develop our nation, the youth, adults, and even cause whether content or not, I think ethical as trained and professional journalists should be able to do the right thing all the time.
Thank you, Mr. Ampadu. So this, you know, as Mr. Sani mentioned, is multifaceted, multidisciplinary approach, and we see that journalists also have a role to play in there on what content you are allowing, especially producers, what content you are allowing to go on air and be fed to the public. Now, Mr. Ferguson, I'm hoping that you're still with us. Are you there? From a national point, what clinical approach can we put in to tackle this issue and ensure that the youth, the minds of the youth, are more sanitized?
Okay, so this all boils down to training. Okay, it boils down to training and then how we empower our youth psychologically. So there's the need for us to improve on our mental health education. Okay, that is one. Giving them the skill that is needed cognitively. Okay, to be able to manage their emotions, manage their feelings, to develop their attitude, their values. Okay, these are all critical things that we need to look at. So in terms of human development, we are looking at a holistic development approach. So not only looking at their cognitive abilities or their intellectual abilities, taking them to school, giving them all that they need to know about arithmetic, geometry, and all that. But then we also need to build their mental capacity to be able to withstand some of these difficult changes that comes around. And once we've been able to help them to achieve that, then they'll be able to sift through what is good and bad, and then actually choose. Bear in mind that these are adolescents, they are growing, and so at the stage that they are not fully matured, okay, and so they are bound to make some of these mistakes that we see. But then if we prepare them well, okay, if we walk them through and help to build their mental capacity, then one way or the other, we are helping them to deal with some of these issues that they are confronted with. We also need to be mindful of the societal pressures that come with them, okay? And in terms of the adolescents, there are a lot of pressures that come with them. But then how well are they prepared to deal with it? And so by being able to help them to build their mental capacity, you are equipping them with the tools to be able to deal with the pressures as well that comes from within the society, and which is a key factor of all. So the home environment, we need to also look at it carefully. Okay, what are we exposing our children to? Because the environment is a key factor in shaping our life. The society that we live in also needs to be sanitized. We live in a society where there are a lot of social vices that are ongoing, and then all these things are going in and they are not being checked. And so they also pick them up and they go with it. They are just mimicking it. And so we need to also check the society, the social vices that are ongoing. How do we deal with them? We need to have pragmatic measures to dealing with the situation in order for them to know that there are consequences for every action that you take. And therefore, you need to be responsible for every behavior that you are putting up out there. And I believe that once you're able to put in these measures and equip them well psychologically, we may go a long way to help you with this issue.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ekem Ferguson, who is a clinical psychologist. We have seen from all our contributors that there isn't exactly one way to tackle juvenile delinquency, because there isn't one contributory factor to juvenile delinquency. It is a myriad of issues and factors from different stakeholders that eventually lead to such reactions, such behavior from teenagers, from the youth. And so we hope that this conversation has been relevant to you and that you have at least picked up something important that will guide all of us as a country going forward. My name is Nwong Falog. Thank you for joining us on MX24. See you again same time tomorrow, 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. Good evening.